She's an award-winning writer, a hunting guide, archery and rifle instructor, keynote speaker, and all-around outdoors woman who encourages you to get outside, hunt, fish, shoot, and savor all that life has to offer. And now, here's your host, Mia Anstine.
Well, hey, hi, hello. I'm so happy to be visiting with you again, and I hope you had a fabulous summer. I sure have been enjoying it a lot. And with the winding down of summer, a lot of people are headed back to school. Not me personally or my youngster, but it is just a time to kind of reset. And so here I am visiting with you again. Today, I'm going to be giving you a recap of kind of the happenings in the outdoors, some of the fun things that people did over the summer, as well as some of the legislative issues that have hit the deck, and a little bit more. So stay tuned and we'll get all caught up.
This summer, whether at the range or in the field, WSI Sports Hypertech bamboo tanks, tees, and leggings will have you covered. Visit WSISports.com to support the show and use the affiliate code MACO10 for 10% off your purchase. All products are proudly made in the USA. WSI is bringing back pride in America-made clothing. Again, that code is MACO10 for 10% off your order at WSISports.com.
So I do hope that, as I said, you had a wonderful summer and that you've been outside enjoying the outdoors, doing something great that's healthy for you. Some of the things that I heard of that have been going on during the summer, we've heard about some paddleboarding, river rafting, kayaking, of course, hiking. Everybody loves to hike, I think. Maybe not. Maybe you might just like to go out for a little stroll and stretch your legs, get that blood pumping, that lymph flowing, and all that good stuff. But also, for me personally, I did quite a bit of fishing this summer, a lot of fly fishing, and both on the lake as well as on local rivers and streams and even ponds. So that was quite a bit of fun. I did share some reels on my social media. If you'd like to see that, go check it out. You can find myself, Mia Anstine, on most social media outlets just by looking for my name, or you can look for the show Mac Outdoors by visiting them on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. So far, I haven't created a Threads account for that. I've been trying to check it out and see how it's going to go over there. If you would, let me know on one of those social outlets or email me or direct message me. The email address is contact@miaanstine.com. And let me know, are you on Threads and is it worth the time? Because so far, I'm not seeing a whole lot of action over there, and maybe it's because I'm not focusing enough time or attention. But I do think that it might just end up like Truth and Gab and MeWe and all of those, which I do share on occasionally, but I really feel like it's kind of going into a chamber and talking to yourself. So I guess if you put the energy into it, maybe it'll grow. Let me know. As I said, direct message me or email me. Let me know. What do you think? What's been your experience? I'd love to hear about it. Other adventures that have been had over the summer, of course, horseback riding. Horseback riding, we have been farming, which means irrigating and baling and cutting hay and all that fun stuff. We've also had to move cows and move horses to their greener pastures. Additionally, I have attended some great brainstorming and working meetings for the Colorado Outdoor Partnership Program. I represent SCI on that, and I'm a sports person on that group. And I also am the co-chair of the Colorado Cattlemen's Wildlife Committee. So we went to that conference early in June, and we learned so much about the wolf introduction that is going to happen here in Colorado. That was quite a bit of information, and I may just share that in one individual episode for you, just to kind of let you know. I have had a lot of people message me and they said, why would you put wolves in Colorado? Well, I'm sorry that you hadn't noticed yet, but in Colorado, the voters implemented a ballot measure, and this was brought, actually, it was funded by groups from out of the state, but they brought a ballot measure, and the voters voted by a very, very slim majority to introduce wolves into Colorado, despite the fact that we have an organization here in the state. It's called Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and it's part of the Department of Natural Resources, and they have biologists that study and research and manage wild animals. But the voters seem to know more than the biologists, and they decided we should put wolves in Colorado. It's been a 3-year process. The vote will be 3 years ago in November, and the process has been underway for quite a while. There's been a technical working group, a stakeholder advisory group, and then I and others were on individual focus groups. And through that, we determined the best way and how and where the wolves will be introduced. So by the end of the year, there was a working plan that was presented to the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission, and those are the game commission managers. In Colorado, it's Parks and Wildlife, so that was kind of merged together. So the group together, Parks and Wildlife, they agreed on, there was a management plan presented to them, and then that was held for public comment and public input, and then in May they adopted their first ever wolf management plan in Colorado. That plan isn't going to be the final plan because it's an ever-evolving thing based on the wildlife, where they're going to be, and what they're doing, so who they're impacting. We have been told by the wolf proponents that they will be eating deer and elk, but being a cattle rancher myself, I happen to know that they also will be eating livestock, and this is something that has been proven already up in the north portion of the state. There is a cattle rancher there that has already lost several cattle. It seems to be an isolated incident, and so they're kind of blaming it on the rancher because he's not doing things their way. Wow. Interesting, isn't it? So it'll be an interesting journey to follow as we see the process of introducing wolves. Right now, for those who didn't know, the voters mandated that we introduce wolves. These groups and Colorado Parks and Wildlife, through that working process, determined that the wolves will be introduced into Glenwood Canyon area as well as the Gunnison Basin. And those are 2 areas of 3 that were considered. Another one was the Weminuche Wilderness, which is just right over the hill here. It is not even very far as the crow flies from where I live. And the elk herds in the winter, they migrate down into our area and they pasture right out here in our pastures. I have game camera pictures of those herds, and I really enjoy seeing those. And so guess what will be following the elk? The wolves. And guess what else is in the pasture with the elk here at my place? My cows. Yes, the cattle. So this is something that we do know is going to happen. We are braced for it. It's an issue that I think everyone should be concerned with because wolves do migrate. We already had wolves here in Colorado, but they weren't established packs. And an established pack is 2 breeding pairs that have 2 sets of pups on the ground for 2 years. So right now in Colorado, these packs that are here have not been established because they have been migrating in and out of the state, not staying in the state. There was, however, a male and female that bred and had pups here in Colorado. However, they crossed over the line into Wyoming and they were shot there in Wyoming. At least some of them were. So far, all they've been able to locate is 1 male and one of the juveniles, a son. And those 2 males have been going in and out of the state. Through this, there has been a collaring process, and wolves were captured and collared, and so they do know that these are those wolves. However, through the process also, it's something that I haven't seen in the news reports. If you've seen it, again, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. But the collars failed on some of these wolves that they captured and collared. So this is something, as we're introducing wolves, they want to have the wolves collared, but the collars fail. I mean, it's a mechanical device. And do you know what they say about mechanical devices? What is a safety on a firearm? It's a mechanical device that can fail. And so these devices, the tracking collars, they sometimes do fail. And the agency did have devices that failed. And so we're not 100% sure. However, as cattlemen, we have heard additional reports of wolf sightings, so I don't know if those are being tracked by Parks and Wildlife. So far, we do not have established packs in Colorado. We only have a male adult and a male pup, which is now probably grown, but those two wolves are the only two that we have in Colorado, and the DNR gave us that report recently. So that's what I have for news for you on the wolf introduction in Colorado. Through that process, another thing that I wanted to tell you about is for oil and gas, for most wild animals, there's a complete NEPA process, a complete EIS, and a complete 10J. Wolves are important, and we should care about wolves. I know some people dislike them, some people love them, and they put them on this pedestal above all other wild animals. They're better than anything else we have. And they don't think that wolves should be managed because they're an elite, majestic creature. However, all other animals, you would have to do this process. When we introduce the lynx, when you introduce any other animals, you had to do this process. But with the wolves, it's become an abbreviated process, which also is challenging because it could hinder our ability to manage the wolves later in this journey. That's something that it is kind of baffling to me. As I said, if I'm missing something here, I appreciate your feedback. I'm always learning, and I hope you are as well, because there's so much to this that it's really hard to keep up with. And so another organization that I've set in with, and we actually had our first in-person group meeting, and this is an umbrella organization. It's called Colorado Wildlife Conservation Partnership. And so with this organization, we have groups like SCI, Safari Club International, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, National Wild Turkey Federation, Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation, all these different organizations, the muzzleloader group, the bow hunters, and all of us come together and we discuss how to proactively work with the hand that we're dealt. And this is something I have also people on social media reach out and they say, if we could all just band together. Well, I wanted to let you know we're doing it. We have banded together. We work on these. We have great clout within the agency at Colorado Parks and Wildlife. So far with the commission, this will be another story that I'll add on with Colorado later, but we have great clout with the Game Commission, but we represent hundreds of thousands of sports persons and conservation-minded individuals. And I wanted to refer you back to a prior episode where we talk about the difference between conservation and preservation, because conservation is the wise use of a resource. Preservation is no use of a resource. And so having wolves on the ground and not managing the wolves is actually preservation. So I just wanted to give you that. You can look back into past episodes, and I'll put a link in the notes of an episode where I talked about what the difference is and why it's so important. So with these groups, we had our first in-person meeting. We do meet all the time on Zoom. It's quite often, and it does keep us consumed. However, having these groups, it also helps us have a better eye out for what's going on in the outdoor world, because there is a lot in the whole industry that's going on. That's been very helpful. I will try to give you some summaries and updates, because even though it's the Colorado Wildlife Conservation Partnership, we do talk about national issues as well. And if you have something like this in your state, you should look for it and see if you can have some input, or at least get the feedback from them so you're aware of what is happening out there. Some of this, for my friends who are not hunters, is actually about trails and management, and also about recreation and how we integrate and how we all work together between the recreation world and the hunting world and the agricultural community. So these are things that all go together as one big picture. It's not just about one thing, it's about all of it. We want to coexist. Here's another thing that's going on right now with the EIS, and you're seeing where animals can live, where they are able to have habitat and that sort of stuff. We also, conversely, have the lesser prairie chicken. Okay, the prairie chickens, who some people, they told me they didn't even know this was a thing, but there are prairie chickens. They're like a grouse or a pheasant. They're a bird that lives out in the prairie, and they are becoming endangered. So with the Endangered Species Act, these prairie chickens have been listed on endangered species and then downgraded and delisted. And so this goes back and forth. And this is a big deal because in these areas where they're listed, you have issues with energy, issues with agriculture, and it impacts a lot of different things. So in New Mexico, the populations of the prairie chickens are plummeting. They had come back, these populations, and now they are downgraded again. They are not downgraded. They are depleting again. Okay, so right away, it's like, okay, screech, stop everything on their habitat. We cannot disturb them. Well, what people are not looking at behind this story is in New Mexico, they have eliminated all trapping on public lands. And so there's no trapping of bobcats, coyotes, foxes, raccoons. And these animals, skunks, possums, they actually eat the eggs of the prairie chickens. So they are increasing their populations because there's no more trapping on the public land to manage them. Thus, we're losing the populations of prairie chickens. So there's always a bigger picture. Whenever you see one issue and you narrow in on that, always, while you're honing in, always look at what's behind it, look at what's around it. Kind of like for my target shooting and my hunting friends, don't get that tunnel vision. Don't just look at your target. Look at what's around it. Look what's going on and see how it's impacting and affecting other things. By eliminating one, you're hurting another. So that's an issue that's gone on this summer, and I just thought you really needed to know about it. As we head into fall, it is hunting season coming up in Colorado. We have pronghorn in mid-August, and then archery season and early bear season start in September on into the whole season structure. I want you to also remember that while you're hunting, to remember fair chase, remember the animals and the community. My goal this year was to try to do one hunter education class a month. And this year, I haven't quite reached it because of all these other meetings and things that I've been involved in. But I have had just about one class of hunter education every month. So if you're one of my outdoor friends who doesn't have hunter education, or if you don't even want to hunt, the class is definitely something that you should consider taking just to help broaden your knowledge. Because as I said, we want to always be learning and just gaining knowledge all the time. Never stop learning, never stop growing, and always keep an eye out for other things. That's not the end of the show, but I do want to remind you again, please follow me on social media, reach out, comment there, email me if you'd like to. The email address is contact@miaanstine.com. I do appreciate those of you who have reached out. I recently had a women's group that invited me to help teach or speak at one of their events. We're waiting for clarification on that, but we'll see if I end up going to that one in the coming months. I don't know. We don't have any dates yet or anything, but that was kind of cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. With the winding down of summer also, I know in some areas the temperatures are extreme. So I do want to remind you to check the water temperatures as you head out to fish, because especially if you're fishing for trout, those fish can become very stressed, and we want to be as gentle as we can with them to help their populations survive as long as possible and help them have healthy, long lives as well. If you are one who catch and releases, the handling is extra important. However, if you're one who keeps the fish to take them home and eat, please make sure that you only take however much you're going to consume, because what seems to happen is we all end up with these freezers that are just filled with fish, and then later they're freezer burned, and then I have an idea. You can donate them to your local wildlife park or zoo, and they can use them. But it'd be better if you only took what you needed and don't overfill that freezer. While we're talking about the outdoors and hiking, I recently saw a post joking. It was a joke, and I understood that it was a joke. I was joking about taking a selfie with a mountain goat. And while I understood that it was a joke, I didn't think it was funny because it was actually put out there by the Wildlife Agency, so it's not funny. There are a lot of people who are impeding on the wildlife space, and I know people think that it doesn't bother the wild animals. However, it does, and it changes their patterns, it changes their routes, it changes a lot. So please just give wildlife their space. They're not pets, they're not Disney animals, they actually are wild animals. And here in Colorado, there actually have been several bear attacks this year. The black bears are not bears that I generally am afraid of. Yes, I am cautious and I would say respectful of them, but I have never been afraid of the bears. However, with this increase in bear attacks, what it tells me is there's more of us in their space. Generally, when I come across a bear, it's kind of like we see each other and we both kind of go our separate ways. I'm always extra cautious if it's a sow with cubs because mama bears will protect their babies. And you don't want to be in the middle of that. But so I do want you to take caution with that. Here in Colorado, we also have had a sheep herder who emerged from his tent in the middle of the night. He heard something going on, a commotion with the sheep, emerged from his tent and was prepared to protect the flock. However, he was slammed by a bear and attacked by a bear. He did get a shot off at the bear. I haven't heard the report whether they recovered that bear or not. They did bring the wildlife services down to do that investigation and so forth. But he is okay. He did survive. But this is something that happens when you're out there in the woods and in the wilderness. So I'm not wanting you to be afraid. I just want you to be respectful, be responsible, and be cautious. Know what's out there. You can also get rammed by a bighorn sheep. There were people trying to feed bighorn sheep or take selfies, I don't know, that got rammed with the bighorn sheep. There's also some outdoors women who were floating in a too shallow creek. I don't know how that was floating. I think they were just sitting in the water, maybe. Anyways, that's beside the point. They were in a creek bed or riverbed and they got attacked by a pack of otters. And these are actually women who are experienced in the outdoors, and it would be interesting to know what did they have about them that provoked these otters to attack them. I mean, they had gashes from head to toe. It was more than one otter, so I imagine trying to fend off one while another one's biting you, and they ended up in the hospital and with multiple lacerations and needed stitches and care, and I don't know what the follow-up is on that one as well. Again, if you have an update, let me know and I'll share it on a future episode. But the point is, when we see these wild animals, try to not provoke them. Try to give them their space. Try to be respectful to them, just as hopefully people are respectful to you. And on that note, I hope you had a good summer. If you have some crazy, fun, exciting tale that you would like to share with the listeners, please send it to me. The email address again is contact@miaanstine.com. Message me on social media, Mia Anstine on most social media outlets, or Mac Outdoors on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I will be back with regular episodes soon. Welcome to the end of summer.
Hey, this is Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, host of the Armed Lutheran Radio Podcast, reminding you that the podcast you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out all the great content at selfdefenseradio.net.